Hello, everyone. My name is Fabio. I am the gaming ambassador for the Neurodiversity Foundation, and I am super hyped to be with you here today for this opening session of our first very neurodiversity game jam, which is part of the broader Neurodiversity Pride celebration. Neurodiversity Pride and the mission of the foundation itself is to really honor amazing diversity of minds all around the world. And when we talked about, well, how we could do that, well, what better way there is than making games? And so today we're going to jam. Today and for the whole weekend, for that matter, we're going to jam. And this event is little bit of a introduction to the jam. In a while, we'll tell you a bit more about how you can participate, the rules, the theme, and so on and so forth. But we have a lot of beautiful things planned. But the show also is an occasion for us to reflect a bit. It's a bit of a moment to reflect on what neurodiversity means to us. How it has shaped our lives, how it has been part of our life journey, and how, games can be a great way to express oneself, connect people. And, they could be a lifeline really sometimes. For me, for example, in my little world, games have always been the way I've forged social relationships and nurtured them over time as a kid, but also now as an adult. And so it's incredible how many things, games can unlock. But I am not nearly the most qualified person to talk about this. And I don't have to because I have amazing people around me that are way more qualified than me. And instead of me blabbering too much, I will leave them to present themselves. And I would like to ask Caro to join the party and introduce yourself to our lovely, lovely audience.
Thank you, Fabio. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Jose. So I'm not a gamer and not a developer either. Really, I was involved in the role of the coordination of the Neurodiversity Pride Day for Canada. And by working with Nedward, as we're going to hear in a sec, he had the idea of a game jam, and that's how it all started. So I'm just a tool, but not very useful. I'm gonna learn a lot, and I'm sure after that I'm gonna start to like games and maybe design games. So welcome everyone, and thank you, Fabio, for moderating.
All right, Nat, take it away.
Thank you very much, Fabio. And please, Carol, you've been such a big help. Hi, I'm Nedward W.D. Verhonic. I'm a game designer, an artist, and a researcher. I've always been very passionate about making sure that people are represented and what does that look like. So I'm very, very excited to be here today. I love game jams, so it's been an honor to actually put on one. That's been a fascinating experience. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what this weekend comes out to. I'm excited to see everyone express themselves. Thank you very much.
All right, Steve.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks all. Carolyn will make a game review yet, I imagine. I'm Dr. Steve Wilcox. I'm a game designer and game researcher, and I'll be giving a little bit more of an in-depth bio about myself in a few minutes here. So I'll just leave it at that and hand things back over to Fabio. But I'm very excited to be a part of this, and it's an honor to be included in this. And I'm again, like Ned, very excited to see what comes out of this. It's such a timely and exciting jam to be a part of.
That's beautiful. Thanks very much. Thanks very much. There's also someone else that would like to say hello. It's our very own founder and director, Chirk, and he made a little video for us introducing the foundation, introducing Neurodiversity Pride, and diving a bit more deep into what gaming could do for neurodiverse audiences and how we can all benefit from gaming a bit more. So, Ned, would you mind playing Chirk's video?
Of They are game builders of Canada. My name is Chirk. I'm the director of the Neurodiversity Foundation and founder of the worldwide Neurodiversity Pride celebrations. And I'm grateful for what you are about to do what you're about to make and the friendships that you will form in that process most. I'm grateful that you do what few people are capable of doing, game making. That you use your brains to make that work, that you do it together, and that you will create something of beauty in which we will invite the world to play together. Neurodivergent people from all 55 nations that are celebrating Neurodiversity Pride this year. One of the things that saved my life was games. Being an autistic man myself, there is a lot of wild energy that needs an outlet, and I play these very old Gen X Java-based old games on my phone to calm myself down. And when playing, I have new thoughts about strategies in the game that transfer to approaches and wisdoms in life. When I play with others, I start understanding others from their gameplay perspectives, knowledge that I use in the real world. Gaming can be a refuge, but it can also be a home. It can be also your personal school or your club. It can be a place where we meet each other. A place where we allow our more playful, creative, and competitive parts to rise in us. Game Builders of Canada, we ask you to create. This is your invitation. In game making, as a creator, you're creating a story, a world, rules, experiences, and it allows people to feel their emotions, to understand how to cooperate with others, to negotiate the world we play in. And in these games, there is no mask needed. We can be our most authentic selves, our own normal, our own way. And this thing of allowing us to behave in more authentic ways, over time, this shines through in our own personal bravery in becoming more authentic, more our whole self, rather than a small part of that in a public self. And it shows how we all need to be exactly as we are, and how we all seek to be amongst those who can accept us for who we are, even when it's in a game. Games connect us to our deeper selves.
So, can I too?
It also connects us to those we play with. And when we stop playing that game, the gameplay may lead us to perceiving the world differently, to see others differently, and to seek out that realness, that authenticity that we allow ourselves when we play in the games ourselves. And this is why I'm deeply thankful for you all, as you are going in this wild journey of the 48-hour game jam, the first in the world of its kind, and the way how Canadian neurodivergent people put themselves on the world map as a people that have the world something beautiful to offer. And as you are going on this journey, I invite you to do your best. This is our time to create as neurodivergent people. This is our time to build. This is our moment. And I want you to have a look at your fellow neurodivergent builders. And I invite you to consider them as your new friends. We neurodivergent people, we have a lot to give. We have a lot to be proud of. And on June 16th, I invite you all, every single one of you, to take a minute, a moment or an hour to do the core tradition of this day, which is to self-reflect on your neurodivergent self in a positive light. Also, on June 16th, I want you to invite people to play the game and see what joy, what fun we can create when we as neurodivergent people pool our brains and hearts together. So let's build games that welcome and celebrate difference. Let's hear stories about how neurodivergent people experience reality, and let's shout it out loud to the entire world so more and more people can become aware of the beautifully different ways the human mind can perceive the things of this world. And it's important to me to recognize those who made this happen. First, we have Caroline Jose, the leader of Indie Pride Canada and our good friend and partner and the likely founder of Neurodiversity Foundation Canada. Yes, we are. Then I want to mention Maestro Fabio Montagna, our gaming and play ambassador, who's been so helpful with this mission. And I want to specifically single out the wise Steve Wilcox and the visionary Network Rehanek, and all mentors that will support you, the Canadian game makers. And I also thank Jeff, Chris, Chanel, Jordan, and Alex for helping Neurodiversity Pride with the promotion of this game jam, with recruiting mentors, and with cheering us when everything still had to be done. You are seen, you are appreciated, you are loved. This year, there will be Neurodiversity Pride celebrations in 55 countries, created by neurodivergent people, for neurodivergent people. It is us making this, and you are an important part of that. Thank you for creating what needs to be created, for doing what needs to be done. Equal to all others working so hard this Indie Pride Week, we are changing the world. We're making it better. For our neurodivergent people, for the next generation of neurodivergents to come, and for all like us. And I want to close with the quote of the year, which relates to what you are about to make. The place we will go is the space we belong. Thank you for your participation. Now let's start this game jam.
Awesome. What amazing words. Alrighty, I'm going to be passing it back over to Fabio now for the next part.
Indeed. Well, after Shirk's amazing words, let's talk more about the game jam. We're going to have a game jam for this weekend. The very first Neurodiversity Pride Canada game jam. Certainly not the last. So let's have some fun. And we're going to have it on itch.io. That's the platform we used to run it. I'm sure many of you already know it. And I just want to take some time to go through it and, talk to you a bit more about what it is about, the rules, the themes, and such. So without further ado, I will ask Ned to kindly pull up the itch.io page, and I will be happy to walk you through it. Are we ready to go?
Ready.
Hell yeah. Well, first off, it starts in 20 minutes. So it feels like a bit, the last day of the year. It's like an actual countdown, We're live in 20 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, and that's quite exciting. So we are indeed the Neurodiversity Foundation. We're a happy bunch on a mission to make the world a more neuro-inclusive place. And what better way to do that than ask neurodivergent gamers to tell their stories through the power of gaming? Isn't that amazing? The jam is going to last for the weekend until Sunday afternoon, and people have the freedom to build the games they want around the theme of neurodivergent experiences. Now, it's on purpose a theme left quite broad because we don't want to condition necessarily people in any way. We all have our life journey, we all are different. We all have different experiences. And so We want really people to be able to tell their story in the most personal possible way. That said, if you want more pointers, Ned was kind enough to introduce a few sub themes that you can see. There's some actions, objects, sensations, and relationships between other and I. It's all optional. You don't have to stick to the sub themes. It's entirely up to you. Just tell us your story. We are waiting to hear your story, and we are quite excited about it. The rules, they are fairly simple. This is a celebration. This is not a competition. This is a celebration. So there's not going to be a panel of judges at the end judging your game. There's not going to be prizes because this is about celebrating neurodiversity. So anyone can join. And when we say anyone can join, we actually mean anyone, especially if you have never taken part in a game jam before or even made games before. It might sound a bit daunting, but give it a shot. We have amazing people on Discord. We call them the mentors, among which us that will be able to guide you through this path. We're here to help you have an amazing experience and enable you to tell your story. So it doesn't really matter if you've made games before or not. Just join the game jam, join our Discord channel, and let's have some fun. We can guide you through the way. You can use whichever tool you want, whichever game engine you want. We suggest that you use something that can be, to submit games that can be played in a browser so more people can have access to it. So with your permission, we can also put them in the Neurodiversity Foundation page and have some fun with it and let a much broader group of people play these games. You can use public domain images. You can use, images or audio or anything that you need. Just no AI. We want creativity to come from here to, human intelligence, not artificial intelligence. So please, no AI. Again, people of all ages can join the jam. Of course, we do not recommend talking about NSFW content, not safe for work or controversial themes, but we understand that, again, in our journey of life, certain experiences might have been part of our journey. And it's important, if they're part of our story, to communicate them. In that case, maybe just put some disclaimer at the beginning saying that there are certain themes, NSFW content or controversial themes, so people know what's coming. So people can choose whether to continue and listen to your story, or maybe, or maybe try another time when they feel a bit more comfortable about experiencing certain thematics. The jam starts in 20 minutes, but in theory, maybe you already have done your game because you knew about this already. This is just an opening show, but we have announced this now a week or two ago. So there's no real time constraints. You have until Sunday to submit your game, and you can do that whenever you want within the submission deadline. And it's all fine. This is not a competition. This is supposed to be nice and relaxing. So no pressure at all. I repeat that if you want to enjoy this, if you want to start interacting with us and, have a chat, see what's the vibe, on Itch, you can find a bunch of Discord links, and I'll ask Ned to talk to you about more of that in a moment. And just come, just have a chat, sit there, vibe with us and see how it goes. There's many ways for you to interact there, whether you are a game developer with 20 years of experience or someone who's never made a game before. There's something for everyone. Last thing I will mention is that after the jam, we're gonna have another little Twitch stream now. We like it. We've done our first one, and you don't just stop at one, do you? Then you get excited and you start doing that all the time. So after the jam, we wanna have a little after party, don't we? And so on June 16 at noon AST, we're gonna have a little Twitch stream in which we're gonna do what the most fun part, which is playing the games. We're going to play the games. We're going to celebrate the game makers, and we're just going to listen to the stories you have to tell us. That's what a game jam is. Again, it's not about the competition. It's about the spirit. It's about listening to these stories and experiencing your beautiful life journeys that you were kind enough to wanting to share with us. That's the plan, you see. And I want to stress again how you're not alone in this. You can count on us if you have questions, if you have doubts. You can always reach out to us. There are the mentors, and I'll let Ned talk more about that because on Discord there are specific places where you can go and ask for help. So again, join the show and let's jam. Ned, would you mind taking it away from here and telling more about the ladies and gentlemen that are watching about the Discord side of the story and how they can interact with us?
For sure, I could totally do that. That just requires me to share my Discord. One moment, please. I'm the person who set up the Discord, so if there are any issues with the Discord itself, feel free to hunt me down. I am on the Discord. I am known as Walkayard on the Discord itself. I'm also going to add my name, Nedward, to it. I'm just going to make sure that y'all can see my Discord. Woohoo! This is the Discord. Ignore all the notifications I have on the side. I will get to them eventually, and most of them I'm just watching for updates. This is our Discord server. I'm going to slide this over. We have quite a bit of a selection of channels here. First off, we have the welcome channel where you can join and get to say hello to everyone. We have our announcement channel. That's where I'm posting things like, hey, by the way, we're streaming. We're live right now. Then below that, we have the rules. We have both the Game Jam rules, if you want to see them again, specific Discord rules, and specific spots you can look at for certain things that you're looking for on Discord. Below that, we have the resource channel, one of my favorite channels, and I had a lot of fun working on this. There we have a lot of mostly free to use resources to use to make games, such as game engines. You can make text-based 2D, 3D, visual novels with these types of tools. We also have art tools. Some of the ones here listed are previously purchased to use, but some of them are free to use. We also have audio tools, and then we got some tips of where you can find even more tools if you think maybe I want certain asset packs, that sort of thing, right there for you. And then finally, I have the schedule posted here, just saying all the times in EST, from where we start the jam, to the check-ins that we do, to the close of the jam, and then the showcase that we do on the 16th. Just in case you're wondering when is what, there you can find it. After that, we have the introductions channel, where everyone has been introducing themselves. It has been wonderful meeting everyone. Some lovely folk in here. And I'm sure lovely folk watching this right now. There's a general chat where you can get to chat with others about the projects you're working on. And a feedbacks and requests channel. So if you're looking for something like a specific channel to discuss a specific item, or you have a team and you really want a specific channel to work in, this is where you can come and request that sort of thing. Finally, we have the jam channel section. We have the temperature check room. As you notice, it may be empty. That will be filling up over time. You may have noticed I had a whole bunch of check-in time slots. When those come across, I will be messaging into this chat. I'm going to be saying things like, oh, what did you eat today? Or how is it going so far? And feel free to react with either a text or an emoji about how you're feeling. And if you're having a bit of a hard time right now, feel free to send an emoji that expresses how that feels. I will reach out and check in with you. No pressure to respond to me, but if you are having a bit of difficulty, this will be another point where I'm checking in and making sure that you're doing all right. After that, we have the itch.io links channel. Here is where you can share what you're working on. So it's lovely to be able to throw your itch game into itch and say, there, it's done. But what if you want to be able to talk with the other game jammers about it in Discord? That's what this channel is for. We have a general chat for the jam for any general uses. And then another one of my future favorites, the jam photos. So this channel is to share any photos of progress you may be making. If you want to show off that, or if you want to show off the pets of the game jam. I know I have a lovely cat named Shadow that you will probably get to see tons of photos of by the end of the stream. And I'm wondering if she will interrupt this stream now. After that, we have idea discussion. If you want to share your ideas, you're looking for collaboration, or you're looking for feedback, or you just want to share because you're excited and you want to share it, you can use a forum post here to post about it and just get it out there and share it with other people. We also have a group making one called Looking for Partners, where you can either post as a team looking for another person, or a person looking for a team, or hey, I'm new and I have no idea what I'm doing. This channel is for that sort of thing, if you want to work in a team. Of course, no pressure to actually work on a team. You're allowed to completely work by yourself as well. Finally, if you're going, I have no idea what to do, I'm struggling, and you want to reach the mentors, you can also use the Mentor Help Hub here. We have different categories, so if you're looking for art help specifically, design help, sound help, I don't know how to use itch.io, help! That's where we can help you here. Our mentors will be observing this channel very closely, but if you want to reach us, feel free to tag us in any chat going @mentors. But if you are looking for help in general, we do ask that you try to do it here so we can keep it neat and organized. Because if you have a question, it may just be that someone else has that exact same question, and they might want to look at the answer that you got so they can use it for their work as well. And that's it for the Discord. I'm going to hand it right back over to Fabio.
Thank you very much indeed, Ned. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now. Let's jam, join the jam, let's make amazing games. And I'm gonna tell you something. Ned talked about the idea discussion forum. There already is one amazing idea that today going to be like, we have to make this game like legit. And it's, imagine like a Papers, Please meets Potion Craft, and you're this quartermaster that, you know, you have adventurers that one comes to you and say, oh, I need to go on a mountain for 6 days slaying wyverns. Okay, that's gonna be cool. These things fly. So what should I give you? Which weapons, which potions, what spells? And then there's another person that comes. Oh, I need to go on a cave slaying trolls. Okay, well, I need to go on a volcano doing something amazing, stealing something from a necromancer. And you're this quartermaster giving all these tools to like. For me, it's like super cool. It's like Papers, Please on steroids on, and I've also, I mean, I've always been a kind of a quartermaster myself a bit on when playing RPGs, trying to optimize my builds and stuff. So it got me a bit excited, as you might see. So kudos to the lovely fellow gamer who came up with this idea, and let's see what will be of it at the end of the jam. This is just an example, you know, how fun is just to share some ideas and see other people making them evolve, picking them apart, and really through the power of teamwork, making something really, really amazing. That's why gems are so much fun. I mean, it's just fun. But let's take a moment now to reflect. Let's talk about gaming and neurodiversity in a more informed way, in a deeper way, in a more interesting way. So without further ado, I will lend the floor to Steve, who prepared a lovely, lovely keynote for us. And I won't spoil it because I will not be able to use the language that Steve will, achieves. So I will just lend the floor to him and let him and get ready because this is really, really amazing stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Fabio. I appreciate that. And I just love the energy you're bringing, and Ned too. The vibes are just so welcoming and inclusive, and it's just it's an honor to be a part of this community, and I appreciate this opportunity. Yeah. So let's dive into things. I'm Dr. Steve Wilcox. I'm an associate professor of game design and development. I'm an accredited learning game designer, and I'm also a member of the ADHD community. As a games researcher and game designer, I approach games as media that can help us make sense of the world in new and novel ways. More specifically, for over a decade, I've studied the relationship between what's called social cognition, so how people make sense of the world, and play. In particular, I'm interested in how games and play can help us make sense of the world as marginalized people and players do. I've explored this approach to game design with a number of collaborators over the years on a range of different projects, largely working with marginalized communities to help bring their lived experiences to a wider audience in the hopes that through play and through games, people can learn the impacts of their actions and choices and maybe make different decisions moving forward that improve the lives of those people that are kind of chronically misunderstood and overlooked in society. So this has included things like working with food allergic children to address the levels of bullying and stigma that they face in school, to addressing family violence and how to respond to that in a more clinical environment, and also how to make sexual health services more accessible to marginalized communities. When I heard about this game jam and its goal of creating games that express the ways we experience the world, honestly, my mind lit up with all the different possibilities. And not just as an ADHD game designer myself, but after all, my research explores how people experience the world in convergent and divergent ways. And the results of my research have led me to conclude that games are really the ideal medium to help us not necessarily overcome differences, but rather to come to terms with them, to accept them, to understand them and work with them, include them in how we think about each other and the world around us. So not only is this an exciting premise for a game jam, sharing ways that we experience the world, but there's research indicating that games are really one of the best tools for achieving the goals of the larger organization here of sharing neurodiverse ways of experiencing the world and being proud of that diversity and celebrating those differences. So just a brief overview over the next 15 or 20 minutes or so. I'm just going to talk about why we experience the world in divergent ways from a research perspective, why games can help us bridge that gap between the ways that we experience the world. I'll look at some inspiration for you. These are games that I've picked out that are small in scale, that were made during game jams by Canadians that feature divergent experiences. So they're going to hopefully seed to your mind with some different possibilities, but also let you know that games don't have to be these complex, sophisticated, highly polished pieces of media to be effective. Sometimes lower fidelity and jankier gameplay ultimately leads to a more accurate feeling that you're trying to convey. So we'll look at examples there, and then I'll just conclude with some final thoughts to really get you started and energized with jumping into making games that explore how you experience the world. Okay. So we all have a tendency to believe that the world appears to other people just as it appears to us. We think that what's out there is something that's common and shared, and that maybe we all process it or interpret it in different ways, but there's one common world that we're all experiencing. And I'm here to tell you that that's simply not the case. Researchers refer to this belief as naive realism, this naive belief that what I see is exactly what you see and vice versa. There are a host of reasons why we would consider that to be naive, and we'll explore a few of them here as part of it. In actuality, from a research perspective, while we have the physical environment in common with one another, we can be and often are worlds apart from each other. Now, what the heck does that mean? How can we have a part of our world in common, or part of the environment in common, but be worlds apart? Let's look at what that actually means. And for me, that I'm going to come at that from the perspective of cognition and cognitive science. So we experience the world in convergent and divergent ways due to similarities and differences in cognition. From a cognitive perspective, variations in how we make sense of the physical environment translate into divergent experiences of the world. So as our bodies and our senses and our lived experiences differ from one another, so does the world and how it appears to us. To quote one cognitive researcher, this is Evan Thompson, who writes in the book Mind and Life. He says that living is a process of sense-making, of bringing forth significance and valence, which do not pre-exist out there, such as in the play space of a game, but are enacted, brought forth and constituted by living beings. From a cognitive perspective, living is sense making and cognition is world building. And we all, as our cognition differs from one another, the worlds that we end up building differ from one another in interesting and exciting ways that really should energize us and pique our interest and make us curious about, I remember one of the inspiring anecdotes that led to the creation of the game Psychonauts was somebody asking another person on the dev team, what color is the sky in your world? To kind of go, what do you see when I see this blue sky? What do you see? And that kind of spawned off Psychonauts, which was all about a game of exploring other people's inner worlds. And so games can also be a way of helping us explore people's outer worlds, or just the world as it already appears to them. Part of what I want to draw our attention to here is that neurodiversity in many respects is just simply the recognition of the plurality and diversity of ways of making sense of the world that already exists, particularly beyond just the neurotypical. So neurodiversity in a way is a celebration of the different ways that we make sense of the world and the different ways that we interpret the world and that we perceive it and interact with it. From the National Autistic Society, we get this definition of neurodivergence as a neurocognitive experience that diverges from what is considered typical. Neurodivergent people experience and react to the world differently to neurotypical people. In cognitive terms, to be neurodivergent is to make sense of and thus experience the world in ways that diverge from neurotypical people. For instance, we can actually identify some common traits shared amongst some neurodivergent people and actually connect them back to what interpretations, actions, and choices make sense to us. For instance, due to auditory hypersensitivity, it makes sense to avoid spaces and events with potentially loud noises. Due to rejection sensitivity, it just makes sense to us to appease others by conforming to their expectations through masking or fawning. Due to injustice sensitivity, it makes sense to call out wrong and immoral behavior wherever we encounter it. Due to executive dysfunction, it makes sense to seek out additional structures such as daily planners, and also to abandon those structures when they prove inadequate for us. In this way, cognition translates into different ways of making sense of the world, which are also part of how we already experience the world. So these and other neurodivergent forms of sense-making typically don't make sense to neurotypicals, and as such, neither does our experience of the world. This can and often does lead to breakdowns when we have interactions across neurotypes. This is also known as the double empathy problem. This comes from Damien Milton, an autistic researcher. He says that the theory of the double empathy problem suggests that when people with very different experiences of the world interact with one another, they will struggle to empathize with one another. These issues are due to a breakdown in reciprocity and mutual understanding that can happen between people with very different ways of experiencing the world. And we add here different ways of making sense of the world. So from a cognitive perspective, we have these kind of gaps, not gaps between the physical space that we share, such as the same play space of an environment, but the worlds that we actually inhabit as living, breathing beings. And not just the play space, but each of us experiences our own unique version of the game world from this perspective. So how do we bridge this gap? A lot of different ways that we could approach this through like empathy studies, social cognition, skills building, all sorts of different ways of looking at this. But ultimately, there's a very strong connection between play and how we make sense of things that we can seize on and use to help bridge the gaps between our worlds. So games have a way of creating meaning where there was really no meaning before. Prior to playing a board game, what the tokens mean or the significance of a particular card or a space on the board is really unclear to us. But once we've started playing a game, it just makes sense that I interpret the blue token as me, and it just makes sense that I interpret the red token as you. Likewise, it makes sense that I avoid the purple spaces and try to land on the green ones. That meaning, that sense to how we experience the world was not there before we started playing the game, but once we understand the rules, we can make sense of the world in a new way. So to play a game is to really to learn how to make sense of a play space in a way that deviates or diverges from how you might otherwise interpret that same space. They're really good tools for changing how we experience things. What's more, games help us understand the world in ways that other people do. by exposing us to the different ways other players make sense of a common and shared play space. Playing a board game, you might realize that what you interpret as a shade of blue, another player sees as a shade of purple. Or what you see as an obvious move is actually practically invisible to your teammate who doesn't see that same opportunity. Or just think about how the same rule of a board game can be interpreted in many different ways depending on who's seated at that table. We don't necessarily have a common way of interpreting the world. We don't necessarily have a common way of experiencing the world, but play and games helped us achieve that common shared experience. Games not only bring to the forefront how it makes sense of the world, though, but they also create the conditions for what's called social sense making. Social sense making occurs whenever there's a need to incorporate how other people make sense of the world into how we perceive, think about, and interact with the world ourselves. And games create these situations in abundance. In team-based online games like Fortnite and Overwatch and Apex Legends, we not only experience how other players interpret the same play space, but if we want to work as a team and win the game, we'll need to account for the ways our sense-making diverges from those others on our team. Perhaps one of our teammates seeks out challenging encounters. They really like jumping into the fray and being in the center of action, while another player finds all that chaotic fighting a little bit too overwhelming. Well, there we have an ideal candidate for our tank and another for our damage dealer. The tank goes into the center of action. They're in the middle of all the chaos that's going on, and they revel in it and they celebrate in it and they enjoy it. And then we've got our damage dealer, in this case, maybe a sniper, who gets to hold back from that fracas and pull themselves out of that chaos, but also make a decisive shots that are changing the momentum of the gameplay. There we're accommodating different ways of experiencing the same play space and turning it to our advantage. So we're not only understanding them, but we're finding ways to make use of them, to incorporate them into our own thinking, our own planning, our own decision making. That's how we become neuro-inclusive. That's how we recognize the diversity that's in front of us and incorporate it into how we understand the world around us. Does that mean that games that we create should focus exclusively on teaching neurotypicals to see the world the way that we do? I'm going to say not necessarily. For instance, this is a game called To the Moon. It's actually quite a celebrated game in terms of its representation of neurodivergence, but that's really integrated into a broader narrative that's about love and loss and letting go. It's not necessarily a didactic tool for teaching people how neurodivergent people experience the world, but it's weaving neurodivergent people into the larger tapestry of our everyday lives and showing and including them in ways that are not necessarily about focusing on them exclusively, but showing a broader picture that's being painted there. So I want to put out to you as people participating in a game jam where you're sharing your experience of the world, is that simply by making games that incorporate your ways of thinking, of being and making sense of the world, and then sharing those games with others, you're influencing what makes sense to other people, regardless of whether it's explicitly trying to do that or not. So there's value in you using your voice and using your creativity and putting your ways of seeing the world and playing in and being in the world out there for others to engage with. No matter how you go about doing this, explicitly or implicitly, your unique ways of making sense of the world are going to come through in the art that you create. Let's look at 3 different examples of approaching how we represent neurodivergent experiences, or at least how other people have already tried to represent neurodivergent experiences. So the following 3 games are all made by Canadians. They're either all part of a game jam or a small experiment. They're quite short to play. They're all playable online. And I think they represent a good range of attempts and uses of games to represent lived experience. So we'll start off by talking about Autism, and we'll categorize this as more in the simulation genre of game design. This was developed by Tail and Kay during the Hacking Health Vancouver 2013 Game Jam, and has a very specific goal. It seeks to communicate the feeling of auditory hypersensitivity through a first-person simulation of a children's playground. Now, I won't show you any footage of this because obviously a lot of us probably have auditory hypersensitivity and might not appreciate the kind of feedback loop that this would create. But what I find really interesting about Autism is its attempt to capture an embodied lived experience. And the reception to this game is fascinating because it's posted online, and there's all sorts of comments ranging from supportive to critical. So here's a selection of them. One player claims that it's the scariest game they've ever played, getting at the potential for games to maybe stigmatize already existing misunderstandings that circulate in society. This other person says, as someone with autism, I'm offended. This is nothing like what having autism feels like. And yet we get these other responses as well, because this is part of a spectrum after all. I'm autistic and I have auditory hypersensitivity, and that's exactly what it feels like to me. Very nice. I have Asperger's, and this is exactly what it's like for me visiting the supermarket on a bad day. So what happens in the gameplay is that you walk around as a child, and as you approach other children, their voices get increasingly louder and louder and louder, to the point where it is quite painful. To reinforce this, the screen gets this static overlaid over top of it. And the more audio you endure, the less you can see what's in front of you. And so talking about sense making, when you play Autism, it just makes sense to you as a player to avoid the other children, at least the loud, boisterous ones. It makes sense to be on the periphery of the playground and to maybe find and seek out solitude. And the game creates the context where even for neurotypical players, those same actions and choices make sense to them as well. I'll end on one final anecdote, or one final comment on the game. This comes from the user Hamsterism. They say, this is great. A whole lifetime of being unable to explain what it's like. This is a decent simulation for me and for my wife, for us to send to family and friends. I think some people might get too caught up in the exactness of the simulation, but I think it's hard to simulate something that is realistic, that is something like this realistically. For us, the game isn't about what the world looks like, but rather what it feels like. There's a lot going on in this quote. One, I think it really demonstrates the potential for games to share lived experiences, to help us reach out to friends and family and coworkers and classmates, and to go, hey, this is how I experience the world. And it might be a little bit different from you, but I want you to spend some time kind of coming to terms with that. And I think this highlights how language sometimes falls short of that, and games and play can actually rise to the occasion. The other point here, I think, is a clever distinction between a simulation, which tries to be a kind of one-to-one realistic depiction of something, and more of a representation that captures how something feels. So we use that to branch off into our next example here, to kind of capture the more representative and the artistic license that we can take in depicting a lived experience, but in ways that capture how it feels. So this game is called Masks. This is developed by Harry and Ned Rahanek. Is Ned on our call with us here as well. This was for the Gamerilla 2020 Game Jam. So Masks, rather than try to simulate a sensory experience, the game focuses on capturing what it feels like to be neurodivergent. In this case, masking in the workplace. So in Masks, you get 4 different masks that you get to choose from, that you need to swap between or have different interactions within the workplace, such as the stillness mask, which you wear the still mask to avoid making people uncomfortable with your various tics, or the social mask, where you wear the social mask to have amicable little interactions with the people around you. If you interact with people and you're not wearing the correct masks, you get this kind of normative, neurotypical response to your attitude and how you're presenting to them, which is a bit of a pushback. And then you have your image and your unease meter going on the right side of the screen. Image is how other people perceive you. Your unease is your own internal sense of anxiety, which is working against these neurotypical expectations of what a traditional workplace looks like. And the game gets a lot of mileage out of these simple mechanics. Really, 2 meters that are inversely related to one another and some masks gives us all sorts of complex interactions in which it just makes sense to mask in this game. It makes sense to conform to expectations in order to get the job done. And it also makes sense to try to unmask, to take yourself out of those situations. So in Masks, the only way to actually reduce your unease with a situation is to remove yourself from that environment, to go into the bathroom, unmasked, relax, unwind, and then you can go back out into that space and maintain that image that you've been working on. Is this a game that tries to simulate masking down to the granular level? No. Is it a game that captures what it feels like and why it makes sense that we mask, why it makes sense, why we need to unmask, why it's maybe doesn't make a lot of sense to expect us to keep doing this given the toll that it takes on us? Absolutely, it captures all of that, and in a way that is still achievable within the format of a game jam instead of the 3 to 5 years that it takes to make a big AAA video game today. Lastly, we'll look at a way of approaching these broader themes of fitting in and not fitting in, of masking, of unmasking, of belonging and not belonging through a more abstract art form. This is a game that many gamers will be familiar with called Limb. It was developed by writer and game designer Merritt Kay as her first game-like experiments back in August of 2012. This deceptively simple game uses abstraction and a minimalist aesthetic to convey the pressures of conforming and fitting in. And it uses very simple mechanics and very simple gameplay in order to do that. I'm just going to play this video here of some gameplay. So in Limb, you play as this little square that is multicolored in nature. As it moves around, it constantly shifts between different colors. When it comes in proximity to other squares, it'll randomly grab onto a different color. Now, if you're the same color as the squares around you, they'll leave you alone, you blending in. If you're a different color from those squares, though, they'll react adversely to you because you're not blending in, you're not conforming. Now you can press a button, you press the Z button, and what that'll do is it'll grab the color of the nearest square next to you, and you can blend in and camouflage yourself using that same color. But as you do that, the screen zooms in and you get a really aggressive pounding sound. And there you can see when you're not part of the in-group, the response can be very strong and jarring, and it actually can be quite difficult to play through Limb and reach the ending of it because of how jarring it is to not fit in, to not blend in. The game even includes these moments where the world actually looks and interacts with you differently. If you're not the right color, you're not able to get through certain barriers and access different spaces. Here we became the orange square, and all of a sudden a door is open to us that was previously closed to us. Limb does an excellent job of taking the kind of a minimalist approach to game design, something that you could throw together in maybe even a weekend, relatively simple AI, but through thoughtfully crafting the interactions that the player has and what sense the player is making of those interactions, we can actually communicate a pretty in-depth, nuanced message through a very simple and deeply accessible game design as part of that. Across all three of these games, we see different approaches, simulation, representation, and abstraction, that all attempt to achieve sharing ways of experiencing the world from neurodivergent perspectives, but they all have different strengths and disadvantages to them. So I would encourage you to think about the right tool for the right job when you're approaching the task of creating a game that shares how you experience the world. With these examples in mind, I'll just reiterate, I don't think you should feel obligated to create a game just to educate neurotypicals, but again, because you're neurodivergent, I think any art that you create, any game that you make is going to share your way of experiencing the world. So don't get too caught up on whether this is meeting neurotypical needs or standards. This is your story. Tell it the way you want it to be told, and we'll let everyone else pick up the pieces afterwards. In fact, I think we could even think of a game that we could even pitch a game about neurotypicals themselves, but still express a uniquely neurodivergent view of the world. So to do that, I'm going to do a little example here. Back in 2002, Eric Engdahl founded the Institute for the Study of the Neurologically Typical. This is a website that satirizes the way neurodivergent people experience the world as pathologized as deficits, liabilities, and disorders. So Engdahl turned the tables. He coined the phrase neurotypical syndrome, and applied the same condescending, pathologizing language used to describe autistics to the most populous, dominant neurotype in the world. It's playful, it's creative, it's satire, but I think it does a nice job of problematizing the way that other people make sense of the world. So we get this nice definition. What is neurotypical syndrome? It's a neurobiological disorder characterized by a preoccupation with social concerns, delusions of superiority, and obsessions with conformity. Are there any treatments for neurotypical syndrome? There's no known cure for neurotypical syndrome, sadly. Out of this, we could actually reverse engineer some features or not reverse engineer, sorry, Eric also identifies some features of neurotypical syndrome. NTs or neurotypicals often assume that their experience of the world is either the only one or the only correct one. Remember how earlier we talked about naive realism? That's a very prominent way of understanding the world amongst neurotypical people. NTs find it difficult to be alone. NTs are often intolerant of seemingly minor differences in others. When in groups, NTs are socially and behaviorally rigid and frequently insist upon the performance of dysfunctional, destructive, and even impossible rituals as a way of maintaining group identity. And finally, NTs find it difficult to communicate directly and have a much higher incidence of lying as compared to people on the autistic spectrum. Now we can actually reverse engineer some neurotypical ways of making sense of the world to contrast the autistic or neurodivergent ones that we identified earlier. Due to assuming there's only one way to experience the world, it makes sense to cast doubt on and distrust the experiences that deviate from your own, which as neurodivergent people, we experience quite often. Due to the need for social validation, it makes sense to constantly seek social connection and avoid being alone. Due to the intolerance towards difference, it makes sense to police those who deviate from the norm. And due to a preference for indirect communication, it makes sense to allude to what you mean through vague statements and flexible rules rather than stating what you mean directly. All right, so let's turn this into a game. Let's call this the neurotypical game. In this game, you play as a medical professional evaluating people for neurotypical syndrome. Players assess characteristics like social conformity, tolerance for injustice, communication deficits like dishonesty and the need for eye contact, and all sorts of ways that we can flip the script back on others that they have projected onto us. Such a game would challenge the assumption that neurotypical ways of making sense of the world are the only ways or the only correct ways. So even in a game that features neurotypical people, we can make an argument and a case for the value of neurodiversity and why you should be proud to be part of a neurodiverse world. Okay, let's just quickly draw things to a conclusion here. I'm just going to restate some of the points here, and then I'll wrap up my portion of the session here and hand things back over to Ned. Oops, slides are over. So just to recap, games teach us new ways of making sense of the world. What interpretations, actions, and choices make sense to neurodivergent people can and often do make little to no sense to neurotypicals. This is often called the double empathy problem. By making and playing games across neurotypes, we teach one another how we make sense of and exist in the world, which is called social sense making. I'll bring this to a close by drawing your attention to this quote from the Neurodiversity Foundation website, saying that neurodivergent minds bring fresh ways of seeing the world. Here, I'd just like to encourage you, or I'd like to have you think about not only how you can create games that are about neurodivergent ways of seeing the world, but neurodivergent ways of making sense of the world. So I'd like to encourage you to incorporate how you make sense of the world into the games that you make. What interpretations, actions, and choices make sense to you, and maybe not necessarily that make sense to neurotypicals. Why is that important? Well, what interpretations, actions, and choices make sense to us they're not deviant ways of experiencing an otherwise common or shared world. They're actually integral parts of how we exist in and experience the world in the first place. In other words, just because something isn't common sense doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. Games, as media that allow us to share how people make sense of things, enable us to change what makes sense and to whom. So let's be proud of the worlds we have made for ourselves and the sense we have made of them. And let's share that meaning with others so that one day it's just common sense to think of the world in divergent ways. Thank you all. I really appreciate this opportunity to address you, and I'm really thankful to the organizers for all the work that's gone into this, and I cannot wait to see what people come up with. Thank you all. Back to you, Ned.
I mean, Steve, I have to say that in more than an occasion, I had to kind of take a deep breath and control my emotion because I read Steve's abstract before the show, but I did not go through his presentation. And if you pass me the metaphor, it's a bit crude, but if you're my age, you probably remember the first Mortal Kombat, and you remember Kano's fatality. Kano used to extend his arm and rip your heart from your chest. And I kind of feel that's what happened right now to me in a good way. Because you mentioned some things that are like, damn, that was me. That's how, that was legitimately me trying to make sense of things. And that was me literally, playing Comic Zone, which I want to tell the story because it's I feel a bit like overwhelmed now because like you basically unmasked me. Speaking of masks, and I think Comic Zone is a game that came out in '95, and that's when I started to be a teenager, moving towards teenage. I was 12 at that time, and I started to try and be. I was trying to catch the neurotypical disease because I saw all these people trying to be, maybe 13, 14 years old, people being cooler and being more popular. And so I said, okay, I want to be that stuff. But I didn't really understand what a lot of things in life. And then Comic Zone came, and Comic Zone is a game in which this guy called Sketch Turner is a comic writer, and he writes this comic about monsters and about the strange things in his mind. And one fine day, a lightning, I think, hits the book. I played it so many times, I know exactly by heart, like word by word. And the bad guy comes out of the book, and he ends up in the book. And the bad guy starts drawing the stuff that Sketch used to draw to kill him. So essentially, Sketch was fighting his biggest fears, the fears that he was drawing, that was putting in the comic. And what enlightened me was the fact that Sketch was cheating. Sketch was not just looking at, okay, this guy the bad guy, I don't remember the name, I think Mortus, draws a big monster. The monster is stronger than me. I will die, I will succumb. Screw that. I rip the page, I make a paper airplane, and I throw it to the monster, and the monster dies. So Sketch cheated. Sketch wasn't just happy of living it according to the rules and try to catch the neurotypical disease. He actually fought. He actually found ways to fight and make sense of the world in his own way. And that game told me that, I don't have to do what everyone else do. I can take my own time to understand what this means to me and then play by my own rules within still being able to be happy to be part of the society. And what you say to me like made my head explode and like shit, this is a thing. And I am thoroughly like you operate at a brain level which is like extremely higher than mine, and this was like absolutely incredible to me. So thanks a lot for the speech. Ned, unless you folks have questions for Steve, we will move to Ned's speech. I'll take another couple of deep breaths and try to survive this one too. Let's see what fatality is in store for me now.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Fabio. It's wonderful to hear Steve talk every single time. I used to be a student of Steve's myself, so just wonderful to have you. And very, what's the word? It's high praise that you used one of the games that a friend and I worked on, Maya and I. Not pro tip, but a tip for people working on the game jam. Even if you make a joke, write it down as your idea. because Mass actually originally started as my friend and I were listening to a song by Lemon Demon called A Mask of My Own Face. And I jokingly said, hey, what if we just made a game about this song? And then it turned into a conversation about autism and masking, and how, like, my friend and I, Maya, are both autistic, and we both experience masking all the time, and it turned into Mass. And yeah, I don't really have any fancy slides for my presentation. I will just be talking. But I am going to switch, so it'll just be on me on the screen to give everyone a little bit of break, especially Steve. So yeah. Okay, thank goodness I did that right, or else that would have been a little bit embarrassing. Alrighty, so hello, I'm Nedward, WD Rahonic, and honestly I'm very honored and excited that I get to talk during the opening of this game jam. It's been a wonderful time putting it together. I've been a part of the team working on putting it together. As I talked earlier, I made the Discord, and it's been a wild journey. A fun, wild journey. I wanted to first thank you for being here. Whether it be that you're with us live or you're watching a recording of this, what's important is that you're here. You're here! And we should take a moment to address that it takes a lot to even be here. We live in confusing, difficult times, and as you get to hear that over and over from people, but it's true, and even things meant to be fun or encouraging of expression can take a lot. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us, whether that be literally with us or watching us after the fact. For a bit more context of who I am, hi. I'm Nedward, or Ned, you can call me either or. I also use the name WalkerYard online. You may have seen me in the chat. I've been chatting both as the Neurodiversity Foundation and as my private handle, WalkerYard. It's been wonderful getting to see y'all comment. Thank you for your kind words and everything. Yeah, I can't really explain why my name is WalkerYard other than Waka is very fun to say. I design games. I'm trying to make sure I expand on the range of games I make, but being more art-based than programming-based is proving to be a bit of a challenge. So right now I mostly make visual novels. I use the RenPy engine a lot, so if you are more art-based and you think you can make a visual novel, I'm here to tell you that you totally can, and I've made visual novels for weekend-long game jams before. It is super fun and super easy, and I can help you with that. Still, the small games I have made have one thing in common. They were based off experiences I've had in my life, and this is like a retrospective I've noticed after the fact. I first made Dramatic Irony, and it was about the closeted trans experience and navigating who you tell versus who you don't. Mass, as you saw earlier, was about being autistic and masking in the workplace. And then I went on to make a game called The Fool's Ball, which was a visual novel, once again about literal masking, and you were played as a little clown who went to a ball and was really confused as to why nobody else was wearing a mask. And I wanted to talk about how frustrating it is to have this extra layer literally on all the time. And then I went on with Maya again to make In on the Joke, another game jam game, about reading a room and trying to figure out when to laugh when you don't understand the jokes at all, so you're actually watching the rest of the crowd and looking for when to laugh. And if you laugh at the wrong time, everyone turns around and stares at you, which is not very comfortable at all. Another masking experience. And that's what games can be, at least to me, ways to express yourself. A way to explain an experience that you have and put it out there. It makes me feel not alone in expressing and experiencing the things I do when I put it out there. I think my favorite part of making games like this is when you get that one person who goes, I related to this game, or this game made me feel seen. And that's what I aim for, expressing myself and making someone else feel seen through me talking about my experiences. That's a win for both of us because they feel seen by my experiences and I feel seen by the fact that they feel seen. That's kind of what we're here to do this weekend. No pressure. I mean that. No pressure at all. You're not here to represent what being neurodivergent is like as a whole. That's way too big of a task to ask you, and we wouldn't want to ask you to try. It's a lot of pressure, and in trying to represent everybody, you can end up representing nobody, not even yourself. But if you want to try, go ahead. Like, of course, I'm not trying to say narrow yourself to your own experiences, but I'm trying to say it's okay if you're just going off your own experiences. On top of making games, I also do research. My current research is on autistic representation in games. I think it's important to think about how neurodivergent peoples, like autistic peoples, are being represented in games and what those representations tell non neurodivergent peoples to interact with us. I know research is a big, scary word, but in my case, it's all about having a discussion with fellow autistic individuals and talking about representation, what it looks like now, and how it can be improved in the future. There were a lot of talks about the underrepresentation of autistic people in games, and the ones that did exist felt born out of a single note stereotype. It's discouraging when you can't see yourself in the media you consume, and the closest thing to representing you feels so far out from your experiences that it alienates you from yourself. But what do we do about that? We create our own. The group I worked with each made a character as a way to talk about what they wanted out of autistic representation through making. They made stunning characters, each one so vastly different from one another that the only thing that really tied them together was that they identified as autistic. And that's how it is in real life too. Even hanging out with my best friend. I have a lot of food sensitivity issues. Textures of food scare me. My friend does not have that. I'm quite jealous. But my friend has issues around sound sometimes. So we kind of balance each other out, but we have completely different experiences. In my case, my friend will check and make sure the food has ingredients that I enjoy, and I can survey areas sometimes. When we started talking about characters and why they made the characters the way they did, another thing became clear. The characters resembled the creators as well. Everyone talked about how their character was an extension of themselves in some way. Either their culture, their habits, their sensory issues, their interests, or a reflection of them in some other way. In a way, we had representations made with authentic differences because they were made from individuals' experiences. What your life is like, how you experience the world around you, and how you move in your day-to-day life, nobody else has an exact copy of. Being neurodivergent is such a vast spectrum of experience that nobody has the exact same life story as someone else. This is without additional factors like race, gender, religion, region, economic standing, and disabilities that also influence how we see the world. The same is with this game jam. Each person participating today has their own experience with the world and how to interact with it. Your knowledge is so important. You're the only one who can talk about being you so authentically, and that's what we're here to celebrate. Don't get caught up on representing the neurodivergent experience. Your part of the game jam doesn't need to be this grand statement about the neurodivergent experiences as a whole, unless you want it to be. It can be a lot of pressure to think about representing the neurodivergent experiences. That's a lot of experiences you're trying to represent. Instead, maybe thinking about representing a neurodivergent experience. Your experience of being a neurodivergent person. Create whatever you wish. You could be as serious or as silly as you want. I mean, I've made entire games just filled with clowns, and that's worked really well for me. And a lot of people related to it that way. Or you can make something that's direct or obtuse. It's up to you and your expression. You decide how to tell your story and what that story is. It's a lot of freedom to express oneself, and that can be daunting, but we are here to help in any way we can. Here's a weird sentence. Speaking from experience through games has been really helpful to me trying to figure out myself. On top of this, it's given me the chance to see others respond to my game and express how much they relate to it. Speak to whoever you are. Include the other things that make you you, and don't do an injustice to yourself by letting some idea of how you're supposed to be stop you, even within this game jam. Express what you're comfortable expressing, and above all else, please take care of yourself. I hope you come out of this weekend with something that feels like you, that speaks to your experience of being neurodivergent, and something that makes you happy and or proud of. Please make sure to take care of yourself, and thank you again so much for being here.
I mean, thank you, Ned. You folks bring a level of knowledge and insight that is absolutely outstanding. I just wish there were more forums in which people can listen to this, because this is absolutely invaluable and it's not discussed enough, and by any stretch of imagination. So I almost feel like let's talk about, not right now on the show, but let's talk about how to make this message spread, how to make more and more people listen to this, because this is so incredibly valuable and useful and amazing. And your knowledge really never ceases to impress me. That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. Well, I need to compose myself a bit because the show must go on, as they say. And we are towards the end of the show. And I just wanted to take the chance to recap a bit what we're here for, which is to jam. We have a game jam going, remember? So let's have another look at it, ladies and gentlemen. Would you mind, Ned, going back to our beloved itch page to give a little rundown again of what's going to happen? The story is going to be like so. There's a game jam, and it's going to last for the weekend. You have 2 days to make an amazing game. And the topic of that game should be neurodivergent experiences. We left it purposely quite open. It's about your experience. It's about your story. It's about how you see the world. Tell us out. Tell us your story. If you need more pointers on the itch page, that has been kind enough to put some subtopics that you can use to, to forge some interesting ideas. The rules is really that we should just have fun. Like Ned said, don't be afraid. Just tell us your story. We're here to listen. This is your space, not ours. The only thing we ask is that you don't use AI. Again, this is about human intelligence, not artificial intelligence. And you can use whichever engine you want. You can use whichever asset you want, even public domain ones. Tell us your story. And if it contains some controversial topics, some controversial topics or NSFW, not safe for work, then it's fine, because that might also be part of your life journey. Just make sure you put a little disclaimer at the beginning so people can be informed and choose. Team up, join our Discord. This is for everyone. And when we mean everyone, we mean everyone. It doesn't matter if you made a game or not. See what's in the heart. See what your heart tells you. Do you want to tell a story? Do you want to tell us about your life journey and about your experiences and your divergent in the world? Then come. Come on Discord, join us, and we will help you. And by we, I mean, of course, the people on this call, but also the other mentors. Mentors are individuals that are here to help you, to make you have a good time. If you're looking for a team, or if you feel a bit lost and overwhelmed and you want to understand really how to get the best out of this experience, ask us. We're here to help all weekend. Just reach out to us and we'll be happy to help. Say hello on Discord, and you'll see that everything just counts by itself. Because the beauty about a game jam is that everyone wants everyone else to have fun too. So you certainly won't be alone. Even if it's your first game jam experience, or maybe you haven't made a game before, that doesn't matter. Of course, this event is part of the Neurodiversity Pride Canada, but you don't need to be Canadian or to live in Canada to participate. Everyone around the world can participate. And then if you like the show, you can maybe come and watch the after party. There's going to be an after party on Monday at noon AST, and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to play some games. We want to listen to these stories, and we will listen to these beautiful stories that you have told us. And together we will celebrate what this game jam is, that we will have a good time together. That's really the summary of what the game jam is. Do you have anything else to say, Ned, Steve, Caro? Any closing thoughts?
I might just add something. If for the after party, just bring some friends, even if they are not the jams participants. Just bring everyone. Show them what you made, and yeah, show the world.
We want to see motion. We want to see the demonstration of what Steve and Ned have told us about. I've explained this. We want to see that, in our screens. We want to play it. We want to live your stories. We want to be in your world. So come join us, make some cool games, and then let's celebrate them all together. That's it from us for now. You'll hear us again on Monday at the after party. I want to thank once again the brilliant minds that made all this possible. Caro, Steve, and Ned. Thank you very, very much indeed from the bottom of my heart. Thanks to Tjerk for the video. Thanks to the Neurodiversity Foundation for making this possible, for bringing this community together. And now let's jam and let's go have some fun. Thanks very
Thank
much,
you,
everyone.
Fabio.
Thank
And
you.
we'll
see-
and
we'll
thank
see
you all soon.
Fabio.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
You made it possible.
Well, debatable.
No. Bye. Have fun.
Bye.
Cheerios. Bye-bye.